Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday night, so the professional lovers in training are back to talk about Decision Day. I'm Patty.
And I'm Al.
And we're glad that you are joining us. Decision Day. All the couples decided were they going to stay married or were they going to get a divorce. And I don't think we had any surprises, really.
No.
Were you surprised by any of the decisions?
I thought Katie and Derek one of them would decide not to, but they opted to stay and try and work it out.
Yeah, because I thought that I had heard through the spoiler grapevine that Mika and Michael had chosen to stay together, but were no longer together. But it was Katie and Derek who decided to stay together. And I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it for you, but they're no longer together. But that's not really a surprise. And we started at the top of the hill and then went
downhill from
there. So, of course, the golden couple, Jess and Austin, decided to stay together. And he actually said,
"I love you,"
which you were hoping for.
Yeah,
tonight.
And I understand, his desire
for it to be organic and natural and not
but
forced.
have as far as he was concerned, have a true meaning. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just in agreement or in response to you saying you love me, Al, I love you too.
Right.
And he said it with confidence and, the manner in which he said it.
And actually said that he wished he had said it back to her.
Right.
You know, because we knew he's been behaving
exactly his actions
in a loving way. So that was not really a surprise. But he had to feel comfortable to say it. And it's nice that it came out tonight. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the things to really talk about tonight, the whole process has been interesting to me from the beginning, and I've watched Married at First Sight from season 1. And at least, I think everybody coming into this, the ones who are coming into it for the right reasons, because there have been individuals who seem like they got into it for wrong reasons. Like Pastor Cal asked Zach, did you do this to just be on TV? Because he did nothing.
That was a point blank question.
He did nothing according to the experimental process.
Was supposed to be,
Right. And there have been others who seem to only get on the show to see what they could get out of it for themselves.
Or really have no concept of what this particular show is all about. I mean, it's about being in front of the camera and being able to be open enough and willing to be vulnerable, to share how you relate to your significant other, your spouse in this case, as you get to know them, which, I mean, that takes it to a totally different dynamic. But again, it's part of the show. And, to me, Knucklehead, Brandon, I mean, really had no clue as to what this was going to be about. And I think he felt invaded to a degree. But I mean, extremely.
And all of his reactions were about control. I'm going to show you that I'm the one who controls me. Yeah. And I say and I do what I want to, and there's nothing. And it's unfortunate that, because I don't think he's a bad person, but he has a lack of maturity when it comes to handling his reactions and his displeasure and his frustration and his uncomfortableness, discomfort, in productive, positive ways. And that's unfortunate. But I think what I was going to say is that I think that couples who go through this experiment, and those of us watching and those of you watching who are not married, really can see what marriage takes.
It takes effort. It takes effort every single day.
And it's as a lot of these couples say coming into decision day, it is a huge decision. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people go into marriage expecting to get a divorce. But I do think that people see divorce as a viable option, so it kind of gives them an out. Yeah. And I would say that's the one thing that I don't like about the show, because I don't see divorce as a viable option.
Yeah, well, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Right. And if people gave more time and spent more gave more effort into preparing themselves for marriage, mm-hmm. and understanding what marriage really is, then the divorce rate might not be
true
so high.
And as the professionals, vet the couples as individuals. If I think individuals took that type of time, mm-hmm. and putting into what that union would be, mm-hmm. and having maybe an outside individual counsel and allow them to explore their mindsets in what they are about to encounter,
their expectations, right. What it all looks like in their heads,
and it gives them a sense of understanding, what this will be. It's not, as Pastor Cal said, love is not something you fall into. Mm-mm. It's something you work at and you grow in.
Right.
And it just takes effort. It takes energy. It takes much patience, because again, you will always be two individuals that decide to meld together to become one as a couple. But you don't lose your individuality. Mm-hmm. It's just that you are willing to compromise, for lack of a better term, when it comes down to the me situation, or mine, or the I in team, where it does not exist. Mm-hmm. So, you do live in a we sphere, in a we mentality, in a we atmosphere, and you have to consider, and it's not even that you have to consider, you want to consider the other person that you're sharing your life with, mm-hmm. Because you care about that person enough, because it was a choice to be there.
And when you hear people say that marriage is work, mm-hmm. I don't want people to get the impression that it's like
labor.
Yeah, like it's work that you hate doing.
Yeah.
No. What it means is that, as Pastor Cal said, you don't come into marriage expecting, it's not what did he say, that love is not something that happens to you.
Right.
So you're not coming into marriage expecting for love and happiness to happen to you. True. You have to produce that.
Right.
And you produce that by how you engage with each other. And yes, there are certain personalities, the more commonalities you have, the more your personality types fit together, mm-hmm. the more, the more strengths and weaknesses that you have in common, the easier the work is.
True.
Okay? But it's still work.
True.
It's just when it's easy, as in when you don't have a lot of conflict, when you don't have a lot of constant drama, when you don't have a lot of issues that need working on, and then when you know how to work on them in a productive way, that's what makes it easy.
Yeah.
And as we watched all the couples through these last 16 weeks or so, we reminisced a lot about our own relationship and how it was a very comfortable, easy, friendship from the beginning.
Right. Yeah. It developed. It quickly developed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the premise was already set with our similar temperaments and attitudes and characteristics. That again, being adults and probably being at the top of the age brackets that most of the couples were at, we were past that Michael and Mika, growing stage, even though I think Michael was 30, but Mika was 26 or
Yeah, it's
something like that.
more like the Derek. We were past the Derek stage.
Right.
I think he might have
Derek and
been
Katie.
the youngest one.
Yeah, that was the youngest couple.
Mm-hmm.
But again, those 4 or 5 years, is significant when you're establishing your life patterns, and what your, for the most part, your professional endeavors are, your patterns in, how you establish your home front, what your activity levels are, how much of it you'll be doing. So when it comes down to sharing with another person and establishing a relationship, you already know what you're bringing to the table. So it's not something that's going to be totally new that you have to feel your way through.
At least that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And that's one,
that's what happened with us.
That's one thing that, I think a lot of people can take away from looking at Married at First Sight, which is, you have to work on yourself, but you have to know what to work on.
Yeah.
You have to know what your own individual issues are. And right now is a good time to start working through those, however you have to do that, which lessens the degree to which you have to do that once you're in a relationship with somebody else.
Yeah.
The less that you have to work on once you get in a relationship, the better for the relationship.
True. The better of an opportunity you have to work, have to work on the relationship,
right,
as opposed to working on yourself to improve on the relationship.
Right.
Right.
So people have, as Mindy said, found out a lot about themselves, found out how different their expectation of marriage was versus the reality, that it is work. And those are just the normal things outside of specific issues that people brought to the table, like, Katie and her insecurities and Michael and his choosing to be dishonest rather than to
fabricate a
trust. And Zach and his and what he brings to women. Which is what he said tonight. I know that I bring a lot to women, and it was like, after you just said, I'm sorry to Mindy for not
engaging
at all in this process. Then you turn around and said, but I know that I have a lot to bring to women. He caught himself and was like, that did not sound right to people in general.
Yeah.
It's like, anyway. But so, and so there you go. That's the season of Married at First Sight.
Summation.
I thought that tonight was the finale, but they're saying next week the kind of reunion show.
Yeah, like a recap.
Is going to be the finale. So.
And I think there's a couple of surprises
in the trailers. They, of course, they always want to leave you with drama so that you can.
I think this time it might be literally some drama.
Well, we'll see. This, for me, as a person who's seen it every season, I think for me, this was like the worst one.
Yeah.
Just from the standpoint of, I don't know what happened with the vetting of the people, but this is the worst season for the experts putting people together.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because, the show is intended to have a certain dramatic,
it is reality TV.
Yeah.
So,
but there was turmoil, there was tension, there was elements that I think even caught them off guard, and it made watching it difficult because
at times
it was just it just put such a tilt on the whole process that you knew that someone was not giving the process a chance and what they were bringing at that time, and there were a few people that kind of sabotaged their situation early on, knowingly or unknowingly. I mean, it could be conscious or unconscious, but it did make it a little difficult to enjoy looking at it at times.
So we've definitely enjoyed
coming to you
and giving our take on different issues that married people face.
Yeah.
And we hope that we gave you enough food for thought. Thank you to the 40 plus subscribers who have joined us over these last 16 weeks. And we're going to keep, coming back to talk about something, even while Married at First Sight is not on right now.
We're preparing for the next season or what have you.
Right.
But we solicit some of your suggestions. If you have any questions, ideas, thoughts that you may want to...
Especially marriage or relationship questions. We're not experts, but we've been doing this for nearly 27 years.
Yeah.
And if you like, the kind of opinions and thoughts that we've shared with you through this, then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have about relationships and marriage in general, coming from our own experience.
And what's that book that you keep telling people about?
Oh, what's that book I keep telling people about? Well, I've always had it right here with me, and that is Becoming a Professional Lover, co-written with my parents and me. A great year-long study of how to love God's way. A weekly devotional, one tip every week, and a homework assignment at the end of the week. Because we really are about not just saying what, the proper way to love is, but by helping people study it and put it into practice. That's our goal, that you study and put it into practice. And so this book is available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. It is both a printed book and an ebook. So whichever format you prefer, you can do it. It is written from the standpoint of marriage, but the principles can relate to any type of relationship that you have. But it is definitely a great resource. I mean, we read it a couple times. My parents, who have been married 54 years, who wrote it, have to pull it out every now and again, because when you enter different seasons of marriage, there are new challenges and some new issues or things that you've forgotten that you need to review.
And sometimes dynamics change within the relationship.
Exactly. And so it's a terrific resource, especially if you feel like you could use some counseling.
Yeah.
And if you are a spiritual person, because it is written from a spiritual standpoint. And so that's important, but very worth, getting. I think, a lot of people say there are two things that we don't get manuals on. We don't get a manual on how to be married, and we don't get a manual on how to be parents.
Exactly.
So I consider this book a great manual. Yeah. Easy read, quick read. You may be tempted to read more than one tip a day. I mean, one tip a week. Yeah. But it definitely, like marriage, is not for the faint of heart.
True.
You only get it if you want to do the work.
And simply saying, I mean, if you want to invest in your relationship.
Right. And invest is a great word.
And that's what it is. I mean, because again, to establish longevity in a relationship, in any relationship, you have to invest your time, your commitment, your willingness, and in some cases, resources. Mm-hmm. And in this case, we believe that the book can be a very valuable resource to anyone willing and desiring to strengthen and build on, whether it be a new relationship, an established relationship, an old relationship that you just want to know if it's become stagnant, what can be done to, revitalize it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a well worth investing in something like that can do whatever it can do for you.
So check it out. And depending on what the next week episode is like, we may or may not want to recap that. But again, if you have questions, relationship questions, marriage questions that you would like us to answer, just leave it in the comment section of on our YouTube channel, which is Professional Lovers. And we'll be happy to talk about that. And we might take a break, but we'll let you know if we're going to do that and for how long. And we look forward to talking with you again and giving you our perspectives on love and marriage. Until then, stay safe, everybody, with this virus still lingering. And so do what the experts are asking you to do in order to keep yourselves and your family safe.
True.
Peace.
Enjoy.